Thank you so much for tuning into the Dyslexia Awareness Account live. This is my first live, so I'm a little nervous but very excited. And just a little bit about me. So my name is Shamsa. I'm the creator of Dyslexia Awareness Oman. And I'm a student in university. I'm a dyslexic advocate and a dyslexic adult. And today we're going to be discussing dyslexia, intelligence, and the Davis method with Mads Johangard, who is an amazingly talented artist and a special ed teacher. Let me just add him in. Endurance, everybody. Hi, Mads.
Hello. You hear me? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge with us. Mads, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am from Norway. My name is Mads, and I have dyslexia and dyscalculia. I work primarily as an illustrator and animator, mostly within special education. So I make art about dyslexia, mental health, and I travel around to schools and to hold presentations about how it feels to have learning differences such as dyslexia. That's primarily what I do.
That's great. So I actually wanted to ask you, how would you define dyslexia based on your experience and you being a dyslexic yourself? How would you describe it? And do you think that there are any issues with the way that it's defined?
Well, yes and no, but I think also it's very individual answer to that. I kind of look at it in three ways. One is when before you got diagnosed with dyslexia, you kind of have this negative view on like you blame everything on this label that you may or may not know what is. Mm-hmm. But at least with me, when I was diagnosed with dyslexia, I was like, okay, what is this? How can I change my mindset? And what do I need to know about myself in order to educate myself about this? So I did a lot of research within and figure out what's out there. What is the society's definition of what dyslexia is? And what is mine? So within that exploration of myself, I kind of come to the conclusion within me that I use my strength to compensate for my weaknesses, so to say, the things I'm not so good at, which is in my case is drawing. Mm-hmm. And through that process, I used my love for drawing and pictures to learn how to read and write. So in that sense, I look at it as the good at, so I can compensate for what I'm good at, you know. So that's my answer, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, there's this teacher at Shank School, which is the school for specifically for dyslexics in the US, which is an amazingly superb school. And something she gave this analogy to describe learning and dyslexia, which I found that it really fits with what you were saying, which is like for, you know, the average learner, in learning, we go from A to B, destination B. And for them, it is quick. It's like they're on a highway. But for the dyslexic mind or the dyslexic brain, it's like we're taking the scenic route. So it takes us longer, but we see so many things along the way, which personally I love because it's positive. And it highlights that, yes, it does take us time to do things, but because of our strengths, which is we're deep thinkers, we're out of the box thinkers, you know, we come up with these creative ideas along the way, although it takes us longer. Which, I also think that there is an issue with the way that dyslexia is defined, in the sense that it focuses more so on the difficulties and from the perspective of it's a disorder that needs to be fixed rather than like a gift that needs to be nurtured into a strength. So when you approach it from that, when you approach it from a strength, a gift, then that is when I feel like the students benefit the most from it, or people in general benefit the most from it. Yeah,
it's not strange that there are negative views from the individual itself, because that's potentially all it knows, right? And the system doesn't know how to deal with either. So it's, oh, you can't do something, there must be something wrong with you. So we don't focus on the things we actually
Yeah,
can do. And as you say, give us some time, give us some other ways to explore ourselves. I think it's more important. Well, it's important for everyone, but I think many of these individuals with dyslexia need more time to allow to figure out themselves. Ideally, without
exactly.
negativity, because they're very sensitive. So
Yeah, yeah. Exactly,
I
yeah.
agree.
Empathy and being in tune with your emotions is another strength that is common amongst many dyslexics, me as well. Like I feel like I'm very in tune with my emotions and I'm very empathetic, which is something that you were mentioning. On the topic of, systems, schooling systems are very good at, these assessments that kind of make you feel like that is the definition of intelligence, right?
Mm, mm.
So this is the big question, does dyslexia affect intelligence?
In my opinion, no. You have, like every other people, you
Mm-hmm.
have a range of, if you can call people, some are smarter than others. But I think if we're talking about intelligence and dyslexia, I think they're intelligent in a different way than other people because they have
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
use different ways of in order to survive, in the school
Exactly.
system. I know
Yes.
myself, I was because I realized that I didn't fit in to what the school system wanted me to fit into. It didn't work for me, so I started to figure out different ways to survive in that environment, which but the school didn't recognize that as intelligent because I
Mm-hmm.
failed in so many classes. But if I actually been assessed on what I was good at, which is not able to be tested, then I would have
Yeah.
scored a very different. Maybe I would be in a different life, so to say.
Yeah, 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 exactly. I completely agree with you because we use this word intelligence like it means one thing, like it's some sort of, but really it's like a blanket term for many different things. And I talked about this in my IGTV that I posted for that the course that I did on Coursera, which
Mm,
is intelligence is so diverse and dynamic, and it isn't really one thing. If you're talking about intelligence, within the schooling systems, like with comprehension, reading, and writing, then yeah, I suppose in that way, dyslexics are unintelligent because that's not our strength. But in so many other ways where we're creative, like, you're an artist and you have so many amazing things that you create, you're intelligent in that way. So
exactly.
if you're gonna define intelligence in one way, then yeah, of course, if that's not our strength, then we're gonna be seen as unintelligent from that perspective. So yeah,
100%.
I agree with you completely. Yeah.
I find it
Um,
interesting. I just want to say this first before we continue. It's everyone, it's kind of agreed that not everyone needs to be a marathon runner or best in
mhm.
sport, but
Yeah.
everyone have to be the best in reading and writing.
Exactly, yes.
It's
And in
kind
a
of an
very
interesting
specific
perspective.
way. Yeah, in a
Yes.
very specific way, yeah. And I think, the issue is not the content, it's the way in which it's being taught. I
100%.
think that's something that people don't realize. It's like, oh, they struggle with reading. It's because of the way we're being taught that we struggle in reading. Which we're going to be covering later on. There's the Davis method and the Orden Gillingham, system, which they teach in a way that works for dyslexics. So
Mm.
that's a whole other story, but we're going to get to that later on in the discussion. You were saying that you're from Norway. Can you tell me a little bit about Norway and like what support they provide for dyslexics in schools?
So things have changed a lot since I went to school, which is good because at the time when I went to school, there was not much. There was more than, for example, my mom had, but currently, Dyslexia Norway is doing a great job with giving out awareness, making awareness to all these things. They do, like in the UK, they have dyslexic friendly schools, which is they are working on a lot in Norway right now, and it seems to work out. So dyslexia is becoming more and more recognized. School now in Norway, yeah, that's right. Yeah, dyslexia is becoming more recognized, but still, you have this problem. Yes, this school may know and be having very good teachers, but the other school may be maybe they don't know anything,
Yes, yes,
or the
yes,
school
yes.
is good but the teacher doesn't, it's
Mm-hmm.
all this,
Mm-hmm.
it's so different, and still the teacher education doesn't really acknowledge anything of
Cover or
this.
acknowledge it.
So when you
Mm-hmm.
get into the school system, you just deny that this even exists, and then you have all these issues
Issues.
coming up.
Yeah.
And but I feel like in general the acknowledgement is there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still like, how do we balance, you know, mentally and emotionally
Mm-hmm.
with results? I feel like there is
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
this constant.
Yeah.
So it's getting better, but still far, far to go,
Yeah.
in my
Because I
opinion.
always, yeah, I always say this, like, to diagnose somebody is one thing, which is a good thing, right? Because then you know, okay, I have this difficulty, but then if there's nothing being done to support them or nothing being done after the diagnostic, then what's the point of the diagnostic? You know what they have, you know their difficulties, but then nothing happens. So it's just they struggle. I know I'm struggling, but you know, it's kind of similar in Oman, where actually in public schools they are obliged by law to provide diagnostics from
Hmm.
grade 1 to 4, I believe, and then from 5 to 6, some schools do, some schools don't. It's kind of strange. And they have these pull-out programs as well, which I have my whole. I'm not really for the pull-out programs because I really want to know. I don't know what goes on in these pull-out programs.
So
In my
what is the
opinion,
program? What is that program then?
so a pull-out program, basically the way it works is, so a child, they see that they have some difficulties. This is how it works. They see a child has some difficulties, they get them assessed. Let's say they
Hmm.
say, okay, they are dyslexic. So what happens is for Arabic and math, not English, don't know why, but for Arabic and math, they're pulled out of class while those
Yeah, that's what
classes
I
are
thought.
happening. And then they are basically taught easier content, I'm guessing. Or in my opinion, from what I experienced, but that was in the private school, which is kind of different. I was basically being taught easier content in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So how effective is that? I don't know. And also in these classrooms, all underperformers I put in the same classrooms. So you can have someone who has behavioral issues. You can have someone that, okay, maybe, easier content might help them. You'll have dyslexics, you'll have all sorts of, but it's not really addressing their needs specifically. It's just, let's hope whatever I'm doing works, which I don't think is a very effective approach.
I don't
Um,
know about where you are, but in Norway they often put people that are either too old to be teachers or just like, you know, a not side teacher, not even a special education teacher are put in charge of these people. Is
mhm,
this the
mhm.
same case with you? Yeah.
Well, from
It's
what
just
I've heard about
these
the
people don't
public
know.
schools, yeah, from what I've heard about the public schools is that no, they do have special ed teachers for
Mm,
these pull-out for the diagnostics. I'm not sure about the pull-out programs, how it works. All I can speak
mm.
on is the private schools, and the private schools is just another teacher that does not really have experience in dealing with somebody that might have dyslexia, or so it's just, I'm going to teach you whatever and easier content. But the problem with doing that, you see why I'm against it, is that it actually, it doesn't make it better for sure. It's not effective, but it also can make it worse. You're teaching me
I
easier
think so.
content in the same way, which I struggle with anyway, because I need to be taught differently because I'm dyslexic. So I'm taught easier content. I'm still struggling with it. So it creates a larger gap between the people that are underperforming and the people that are performing well. So you're just creating a bigger gap. So you never catch up. So it's really just not effective, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's like, take my brother for example. He's also dyslexic. He was taken out of history class because he was strong in history class. So they thought, oh, let's take him out of that because then we can focus on something
What?
else. But then he failed in history because he wasn't in the class. So it's like,
why would
okay.
why would you do that? Yeah.
I feel like there's
Goodness. Yeah.
communication on all levels is the problem
Mm-hmm.
here. And I think not only with the teachers or parents, but it's the acknowledgement within the child or the individual itself as well.
Yeah.
Are they
Yeah.
willing? Are they motivated to learn?
Right.
Most likely
Exactly.
not, right? Because they have a negative association with it.
Yeah, exactly. They're made to feel that way because they're always struggling, even though they're in these pull-out programs as a child, you're going to think this is going to help me, but it's not really helping me. It's making it worse. So you're like, wow, I can't even deal with the easy content. So that's the whole blame game and the, feeling of insecurity and being unconfident, which is terrible in a learning environment. Yeah, that's very true.
And many have that. They feel ashamed if they're taken out of class because they feel
Yeah.
like they're different, and it's a
Yeah.
problem. And
Yeah.
as you said earlier, with okay, you're putting these individuals with other individuals with different learning differences, which in some cases can be very useful. But if everyone doesn't want to be there and behavioral issues start happening, it doesn't benefit people.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. Yeah. I don't understand why there isn't just a law to provide. You see, the thing with providing support and, quality support is that it's a cost for schools, especially let's talk about private schools.
Yes.
Even for the government and public schools, it's a cost. It's expensive to do that. So if there's no law to pressure schools to provide that kind of support, that support won't be given. And because these learning differences are so common, then you're just turning a blind eye to so many people that are struggling that could really reach their potential and done amazingly in the workforce, but they're not, because they're not getting the support they need. So that was one of the questions I asked somebody that I was talking to from the ministry, is why isn't there just a law that every school, public, private, requires to provide support for special ed? Like they should have a special ed teacher there, and someone who's qualified, not someone that is just a teacher and another teacher. Yeah. Exactly. So, and with training, for instance, in Oman, there is actually an initiative for training teachers in public schools. I'm not sure how effective it is, because what they do is they train supervisors of schools, and supervisors are then supposed to train the teachers. And then, there's no regulation. Nobody actually sees, is it effective? Is it actually working? Do the teachers actually know what they're supposed to be doing? So I'm like, how effective is what they're, is it what they're doing? At least there's effort, but
in the beginning as well, the teachers that are finished with their education or in it often have the mentality like, oh no, this is I'm not going to meet this individual, who have dyslexia or ADHD or whatever, because that's what I'm in thought. So I have so many examples of that, and then that continue that mindset at least maybe 3 years after, because then they may start realizing, oh wow, what I was taught in school, it isn't reality. If they ever realize. But
that is true.
Did you get an answer though from this individual about why?
They said that it's no straight answer. They said that they're trying to work on it, but they're starting with public schools and going back and forth with it. I kind of understand. Yeah, I understand their position that it's not easy,
it's not
to change a system, especially when it's so broad with public and private schools, and then to have to regulate and check in and, have like some sort of, I suppose, report system to make sure that what they're doing is effective or not. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of money and resources that they may not have. That's another issue, is like, a lot of money is being put into education in Oman. I'm just not sure where it's going exactly. But, I'm just glad that they're doing something, because from my experience in school, it's definitely gotten better. So at least we're taking steps forward. So some things have changed, and I understand their position.
Oh, it's getting better, it's for sure. But like Claire says here, train dyslexic to help all dyslexic. That's exactly what's we should have more of, But
that is true.
It's getting better. It's getting slowly better, at least here in Norway. But it's, from my perspective, I want to have more focus on the individual realize that I can't hold your hand. You have to want to do this yourself.
Yeah.
I can help you. I can give you the tools. But if you don't want it, basically we need to start with mental health and build the individual from bottom up, because many of these individuals are broken. If these individuals have experienced, like myself, 5 or more years of constantly been told that they are shit,
you're failing, yes, exactly,
then they need at least 5 years to be told that they are good.
Exactly, that is so true. And it's interesting that you say that, because I experienced the same exact thing. It's only up until recently that I feel like I've been able to actually tell myself, I am able, I'm capable, and I can do this, because I
Yes.
always had that voice in my head that I can't do this, because I've been told it so much in
Mm.
school, that that's what I truly believed. It's like, a little school was in my head telling me that I couldn't do it, while I was, still I was doing really well. Once I'd left school and went abroad to the UK to in a really good university that had amazing support. I remember my first support session, I cried because I'm like, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to be like. So once I got that support, I started to do really well. But I remember the first year I got my grades back, I didn't believe those were my grades. I was
Mm.
like, they made a mistake. It's impossible. Like I literally thought that they'd screwed up. These aren't my grades,
Relatable.
because I was so, yeah, insecure about my output from learning. So it took a really long time to like decode my mind to like, actually believe that I
Defrag, so
can.
to say. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I can
I
relate
relate
completely.
so much to that as well. You know, as someone who struggled with dyscalculia as well, I was
Yeah.
100% convinced that if I didn't pass math, I would die. That I
Oh my
absolutely
goodness.
thought that. So when I had, because I was told every single year, next year
Yeah.
it's going to be really even harder, and so on and
Yes,
so on and so
yes,
on.
yeah. You have to
And I
get it. You
was,
have to.
yes, and I was told, or I don't know where I got it from, but in my mind I was like, if I can't do math, I can't draw. And if I can't
Mm,
draw, I can't live. That was my mentality. So when I got to
right.
secondary school and first time had exams and failed in that exams, I was so afraid that I would die. I didn't die, but I remember
Thank God.
afterwards that I was like, wow, life goes on.
Life goes
And it
on.
was a
Yeah.
very big revelation for me because I thought like this is it. And
If I
after
don't
that, I
get
was
this,
like,
then.
well, doesn't matter. I can still
Mhm.
draw. I survive. But
Yeah,
I think it's a very good metaphor for seeing how screwed up in some cases
the
you are
system is.
because you are so broken.
Mm,
And this
mm,
isn't recognized. This needs
yeah,
to be talked about more because it's the foundation for learning. If you're not having a good time, you're not going to learn. If you're
that's so
tired, you're
true.
not going to learn.
Hmm.
But when
Yeah,
you are able and having fun, then you can learn. But we don't have
that's
time
so
for that.
true. That's so true. That's so true. I can definitely like relate with that, because even throughout school, like after I was diagnosed, I wasn't really given the support I needed, and I started giving up. I really did start giving up, and I just didn't want to put any
Of
effort
course.
in, because I'm like, it doesn't make a difference whether I put effort in, whether I don't put effort in. Same results. You know what I mean? So I just gave up, and I just start my grades started to decline even more, and it took a lot of outside support from outside of my country, from outside of the education system, which it shouldn't be the case. Some people don't have that opportunity to get
Very
that
true.
support from outside the country, and so I was lucky in that sense. But I can imagine that people would continue to decline and continue if they didn't
Of
get that
course.
support. And so yeah, definitely. So we're
Uh,
talking about support. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
go on, go on, go on.
We were talking about support. So I know that you're training to become a Davis facilitator. So
I am,
that is
yes.
one of the amazing methods that worked for me personally. That's what I did, and had like literally changed my life. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the Davis method and what it's about.
Well, I can talk about from my perspective of it.
Yeah, sure.
So again, I first found it around when I was diagnosed with dyslexia around 11, when I started to look like, what is dyslexia really? And then I found this woman on YouTube talking about this book, Gift of Dyslexia. I was like, interesting. I want to read this book based on what
Mhm.
she was talking about. And so it was the first book that I bought willingly and read cover to cover. Um, and I enjoyed the book a lot because I could relate to the book. It was written in a way that I didn't struggle to read it, so to say. And I was so engulfed in this book because it made me realize ways about myself that I previously thought, oh, is this potentially a dyslexic thing? I'm not saying it is or need to be, but it explains certain things that I did that I previously didn't know that I did, so to say. It's all
Yeah,
about
you
picture
found more.
thinking, thinking about how potentially I view or we view the world, which to me was very interesting, and it taught me talking about certain techniques to keep a better focus. And but the really big thing about this, in my opinion, about this Davis method is like a symbol mastery. You make the letters and numbers in
Yeah.
clay so you can actually touch it. Because
Mm-hmm.
how often do you meet a letter or touch a
Yeah.
letter?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably never. But to me,
Right.
who learn physically, like I need to move, I need to touch things. Like we all a combination of different learning techniques, right? And I need a mental image because I learn through pictures. So
Yeah.
touching it, making a mental image, seeing why. For example, I had a huge problem with V. V was a trigger word for
Mm-hmm.
me. I got very angry for whatever reason when I saw the letter V. But
Yeah.
after like, oh, this is how a V is getting what's the word,
Physical
relationship.
representation.
Yes,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
represent a relationship to these different symbols.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important.
Yeah.
And then you learn the I don't know, were you aligned? Do you remember? Were you alignment or were you
Yeah, alignment. Yeah, I
yes,
did that too. I did that too. Yeah.
yes. So that's like techniques how to make yourself more focused, so to say, not
Mm-hmm.
making your mind's eye, as it's called, I think,
Yeah.
wandering around,
Mm-hmm.
which is very interesting because that's something I did before knowing about it. So I just kind
Same.
of, it just made sense for me.
Yeah.
And I know that Davis method is having a lot of people skeptic to it, and that's okay. It's good that people are skeptic to it, I think.
Yeah.
But it's also, one thing doesn't fit for everyone.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think many individuals would have benefited from it if they got a chance to try it, because it's all about trying out different things to see what works. And there's so many different techniques out there, right? That work for
Yeah.
someone doesn't work for others. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, who is more on the visual thinking spectrum, it was perfect for me to get a physical and mental perception of how I learn
The
and how I
letters.
can be
Mm-hmm.
better. And it's kind of hard to explain though, but what do you
Yeah,
think?
it is. It is. No, I do agree with you because I was trying to like figure out how I could explain it as well, the Davis method. And one thing that I think is great about that method is you remember how we're talking about perspective, right? So we're looking at this
Yes,
dyslexic and what dyslexia is as a gift rather than a disorder that needs fixing, and using
100%.
their strengths to learn rather than figuring like, trying to force them to learn in a specific way that doesn't work for them, slower or with easier content. It's a completely different approach to using the
Yes.
dyslexic strengths to learn how to do things that they struggle with, like a completely different way of learning, which is what I loved
Yes.
and why I think it worked amazingly for me. Like I said this as well in my IGTVs, that, I was really struggling with English, and that's where they saw that, okay, she's struggling here, something's going, something's off.
Mm.
Um, so I was like, in the bottom set of my English. I remember I failed English that year and I was really struggling. And so I ended up getting assessed and found out that I was dyslexic. And my
How
mom,
old were you
my,
when this?
I was around 9, 10 years old. So it was somewhat late, I suppose, depending. So many people get
I
diagnosed at
think
different
I think
times.
it's pretty around normal around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, my mom was amazing. She was trying to find support for me, which didn't really exist here at the time. So she found
Mm-hmm.
out about the Davis method, and we went to Dubai, which is next to Oman, like a 30-minute flight. And we went through a 2-week course of this
Mm.
Davis method. And literally, I was failing English, and the next year I was like in the top set of English, which is like, high ability or whatever you want to call it. And that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
with 2 weeks, 2 weeks of the Davis, which is just crazy and, mind boggling to just think that something for 2 weeks could change the course of, basically your life, because I would have been continued to struggle. And not
Exactly.
only that, but also I found my passion in English. I love literature. I loved writing poetry. I love writing now, even though it takes me longer. So if I hadn't had that support, I would have never found my passion for it.
And
So
that is why, that is why I think the Davis method is really great, because it doesn't teach you, it doesn't use a program to say, here is a tool, good luck.
mhm,
It
yeah,
teaches you physically as well as mentally how to comprehend yourself and then use yourself to better what use your
yeah,
gift, yeah,
yeah,
to
exactly.
make it
Whatever
easier
you're
for yourself.
struggling
And I
with.
think yes, and I think that's different from many other techniques out there
Hmm,
that
hmm.
focusing, okay, this program will teach you how to read, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah,
But
it's more
I
of a
don't
like a
think,
multi-sensory approach in
yes,
a sense. It's like
yes,
more so visually, and also you're feeling and you're
yes.
touching and with the clay, which is really cool.
And
Yeah.
I think it's Davis is maybe looked down on, quote unquote, because it doesn't have those, doesn't necessarily teach you how to read. It teaches how to understand yourself, in my opinion, which is
Yeah.
maybe not as measurable as other
As yeah,
things. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. And I
But
feel like people are so quick to want like a scientific, I want it to be proven, I want it to be, but if
mm,
it's working for people, does it matter? You know what I mean? Whatever works for you should be what you do. If that works for you, then great. It's, as you said, it's not going to work for everyone, because if we said it works for everyone, that's the same as the schooling system. It works for some, but it
exactly,
doesn't work
yeah.
for all, right? So we'd be lying to say that, oh, this Davis method is going to work for everybody that has dyslexia. No, we're not saying that. We're saying it's pretty good, and it worked for me, and it worked for so many other
Mm.
people, who can, there's so many testimonials, so many people that have said that it's worked so well for them. So yeah,
And just to answer a question here, yes, age doesn't matter for
hmm,
when you
I just
could
saw that.
do this, because it works. If like it works if you like try it out. You don't know if you don't try it out.
Yeah.
That's my point.
I don't
But
think age is a problem either. I mean, I
not
think
at
you
all.
should just give it a shot. It's not age based. Hello? Okay, okay, perfect. Yeah.
Low battery. Also,
Oh
I
no.
think,
Okay.
but back to the question, uh,
Hmm.
I didn't really. There was I was 11 when I found this, and I read the book, and I used the book to um, educate myself about it and try out
Hmm.
different ways for myself. I didn't go to a facilitator or anything. I
Hmm.
just tried out for myself. So it was actually last year that I actually went to a facilitator and
Hmm.
tried it out, this technique properly. And
Yeah.
to my surprise, actually, all the things that I had played with my whole life worked very well. But
Very similar. Yeah.
yes. So few weeks ago, I did the first. It's a long process to get through the course, but I've started the process to become a facilitator myself, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that you're doing it, and I actually want to try doing it myself. I want to become a facilitator in the future, which I think is really cool, is that it's very open. You know, if you get through the courses, no matter if you have qualifications, you don't have qualifications as a special ed teacher, it doesn't matter. Like
Oh,
you can become a Davis facilitator by going through all the courses and passing all the courses, which I think is amazing, that it's open to whoever wants to learn, which I think is key as well. Whoever
it's
wants to
open,
learn can
but
learn.
it's also like if you want to be a facilitator, that it's a longer process
Yeah.
because they want you to be. They don't want to let anyone do
And
anything,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything.
You have to pass.
But
You have to get through all of the
yes, and
yeah.
if you are a parent or whoever you are, and just to get a view and try it out, that's possible,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah,
don't
which
need to
is
go
great.
through the whole training to do that.
Hmm.
So I think it's great because it has different levels to it as well.
Yeah. Someone's asking, how do you become a facilitator for the Davis method?
You need to take the there is several courses. I don't remember how many courses, but the first thing you should, if you're interested, I recommend reading The Gift of Dyslexia. book by Ronald D. Davis, and then go to the Davis Dyslexia website, where you can get the first workshop, which is Gift of Dyslexia workshop. And because that's the first one you have, it's a very specific order to this, so
Yeah, you
you
have
have
to
to
do
take
it.
the yes, and that will tell you everything that you need to know about how it works. And if you are interested in actually becoming a facilitator, it will be like field studies and more in depth further along. So, which is could
Yeah.
be like, yeah,
And something that might not be as in depth, and it's not related to the Davis method, is the partnership between Microsoft and
that's
Made
true.
by Dyslexia, who have two courses. They have a beginners and intermediate course, and I think the link is in my bio to the beginners course, which basically tells you all you need to know about dyslexia, gives you resources, websites, tools, which is, I think, amazing. I've went through the beginners course and I enjoyed it. I really did, and I learned plenty from it. So I think I'd recommend that if you were just kind of like a parent that wanted to know more about dyslexia. But if
Yeah,
you're looking at, I want to support my child, I want to, and you really are interested in becoming a facilitator or, venturing into that, then yeah, you could go for the Davis
I agree
method on
with
the
that.
website and follow through with that. Yeah.
It's
So
so many different ways, right? And it's important to try out, otherwise you wouldn't know.
yeah, exactly. Very true. And everybody's needs are different. That's one thing I want to say. Like, intelligence is so diverse, dyslexia is diverse. It's, it lies on a spectrum. Some are more severe than others. We don't, the, symptoms or, don't always manifest similarly in everybody. Some people struggle with math, some people don't. And most of the things we struggle with, I think it depends on how it's being taught, as I was saying before. I think that some people struggle with math and some people don't, depending on the teaching, the curricula, the content.
And they may have
And
additional differences as well.
Yeah, like dyscalculia, which I have and you have as well.
Yeah.
So it really is, it's not like, dyslexia is this one thing and everyone has, it's the same for everybody. We have some things that are common amongst us. Some people struggle more than others. And it's the same with like support depends on the individual, what they need. So we can't say that just the Davis method works or the Orton Gillingham method works, or so yeah. And
You
also
know,
another thing I wanted to bring up is that, sorry.
oh, go on.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to bring up is that, a lot of the things that work for dyslexics work pretty much for anybody who's struggling to read, which is why I don't understand why systems don't like approach a more inclusive academic approach rather than, like pulling people out of their classes and teaching them the same way. And why don't you just teach in a way that would work well for everybody, including dyslexics? And if they are struggling with what you are teaching them, then you need to have somebody, a professional who knows how to support them in the way that they need supporting. I think that's the way that they should approach it, rather than like throw whatever and just hope
Whatever,
it works
yeah.
for everybody. Yeah, yeah.
That is not a problem
Um,
though, because we still use the same system that we used the school when school first started. We're trying to modify it on the way. We're
mhm,
finding
mhm.
more research and things are changing, new technology. It's like all these different assets that it's overload for everyone.
Yeah,
Also for
exactly. Very
teachers, there
true.
are so many great teachers who stop being teachers because they are burned out.
Yeah, and
It's really
frustrated.
sad.
I feel like that's in the education field in general. I've talked to so many people and they've all said the same thing, where they're like, I actually am just so frustrated that nothing is changing or changing fast enough, that they kind of give up. They've worked their whole life in the education field and they're like, you know what, especially in places that, aren't so inclusive and make it very hard. There's a lot of bureaucracy, like for instance in the government, and it makes it hard for change to occur. Then yeah, I've definitely experienced that a lot. I wanna actually ask you two last questions. um, What do you think needs to change in the academic environment to make it more inclusive? So that's something we're just discussing now. So this is like
Yes.
kind of like an
Well,
outro question.
as we're basically talking about, the teacher education need to change. They need to implement this. And another thing that I is basically what I talk about all the time. We need to start listening to the individual. You need to ask that kid, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Can I help you? You look terrified.
Yeah.
And keep asking that question. Keep not necessarily like it's so complex. We're human beings. It's complex, right? We
Yeah.
need to be more empathic with each other in the
Mm-hmm.
and actually listen, so you can actually make this individual succeed.
Right.
But and as we just said as well, these changes is benefits everyone. And for example, again with dyslexic friendly schools, many schools I've heard, some schools doesn't want to be labeled dyslexic friendly schools because they think
Mm-hmm.
that is just for dyslexic, but that's not the case. It's a school for everyone, but it just
Yeah.
helps focusing on or making it bigger so it can
Mm-hmm.
help more individuals.
Yeah, and
So
making it more inclusive. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
yes, I think we definitely are on a good path, but there is all these
Yeah.
little things, right? And the biggest thing is comprehend yourself and allow.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, there's a fly, uh,
No
and
worries.
and allow each other to actually process information, because
Mm-hmm.
we don't have time in our society today. You have to be finished with that test tomorrow, then we're going to have a new test on Monday and you need to finish it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not how you
Yeah.
learn. That's to be a good parrot, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And
So
oh, sorry. Yeah.
just to finish up, are we creating businessmen or are we creating individuals who can create the future?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Exactly.
worker
Exactly.
was this? Yeah, you see my point.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that, there's no real way to prepare for the future. As you're saying, there's no
We
real way
can't.
because I mean, we can't really predict like in like, 50 years time, whatever, 20 years time. There's no, clear picture of what that's going to be like. So how do you prepare someone in education for a future that we cannot predict? And that's in building, core values in the individual, help them be confident, creative, think outside of the box, which are strengths of dyslexics, you know what I mean? So that's why they do so well when they're outside of the education system, if they're not scarred by it. So I think that's something that needs to be thought about more with these education systems is, creating a whole individual rather than focusing on very specific things, because those very specific things are minute in the bigger picture of life and the workforce and what skills you'll need in 20, 50 years from now.
We need to develop life experience.
Yeah.
That's what we need to. It's actually apparently a new curriculum. We're going to start in Norway now, which I'm very happy about. But instead of like, yes, we're going to prepare people for the future, but we need to prepare people for themselves and other people, because
Mm-hmm.
when you can understand yourself, you're ready for the future. Instead, right now we are creating
Exactly.
failures who
Mm.
either sadly end their life or are in a bad circle, or if they're lucky,
Mm-hmm.
they may get out of it. But
Yeah.
we are creating losers.
Yeah,
Sad.
exactly. Exactly. It's sad but true. And even the people that do succeed and leave the education system with stellar grades, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to
Oh
make
no.
it in the workforce. That doesn't necessarily mean that, you know what I mean? Like you have this conception, oh, if I do really well in school and university, then I'm going to do amazing and at work, which is far from the truth. That's not necessarily true. It really depends.
This is what I find in a funny way to say. I'm glad that I went through all the shit I went through to school. Why? Because I experienced having a hard time, but those individuals who just flies through school haven't
Mm.
experienced that. So when they get out of this box,
Mm-hmm.
they have a breakdown. Not everyone, but I see it that many has
Yeah,
this because they're not used to. They need to develop themselves because
yeah.
they
It's
haven't
okay to
done
make
that in the similar
mistakes.
way that maybe you and me have. Yeah,
Yeah.
you need to
It's
experience
okay to
mistakes.
make mistakes. It's okay to be different. Different isn't a bad thing. If anything, it's a good thing. It makes you unique. Yeah, I think that these are things and these are, concepts that need to be thought about more in education. Definitely. Thank you, Mads. Is there anything else that you would like to say or
Yes, there's
to
some
close off?
questions here that
Yeah, sure. We
are
can answer some
important, I
questions to
think,
close off. Someone asked, is
with
this
answer
recorded and
now.
can I share? I will be posting it on IGTV. So yes, you can
Hello.
definitely share it.
Mads, what age group do you
And do you think
teach?
this would work better?
I teach everyone. I travel around to talk to everyone and anyone. Often that's kids, but
Yeah,
I do adults too. So
yeah.
if you want to, you know, send me an email or DM me, and I do sessions online with people or in person, whatever works. Maybe not in person through these times, but I anyone, anything, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And honestly,
Uh,
like Mads is awesome. Like he's literally one of my favorite people in the community. He's helped me out so much. Like I've learned already so much from you. And he's so amazingly talented with his artwork. He did my logo, which is awesome. So yeah, like know that we're both open. If there's anything that you guys need or advice, then you're more than welcome to reach out to us. And we're definitely open to helping you guys out in whichever way we can.
Ditto.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Mads. I really appreciate it.
Had a
Thank you
great
for
time,
sharing the
and let's
knowledge
do it
with
again
us.
sometimes.
Yes, definitely, definitely. I'll be having more lives, and I'm really excited about it. I'm glad this went well. I was quite nervous actually about the first one,
You did
but
very
yeah,
well.
thank you. Thank you so much. All right, then take care. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Thank you.
Thank you.